Okay, so we're going to review last week's work, which was on rounding numbers. We're going to look at first rounds to the nearest 10, 100 and 1000. It's useful when we're looking at estimations and when we only need an approximate answer. So, rounding 243 to the nearest 10. Highlight the tens column, that's the one we're looking at, so the 4 there. Then write down all the numbers that appear before the arrow. So we're looking at the 2 here because that number is not going to change. After the 4 is a 3, so we look at the number afterwards to see whether we round up or down. Remember, if it's 5 or more, we go up, and if it's less than 5, we round down. So here I've got a 3, which will round down, which makes our number 240. Okay. Now a bigger number, we're going to round this one to the nearest 10 again. So, highlight the tens column again, there's your 8. Write down the numbers that appear before because they're not going to change, so in this case 27, 2 and 7. After our 8, there's the 6 there, which is greater than 5, so our answer should round up, giving us 2,790. You'll notice that because we've rounded to the nearest 10, there are no units. So it's just a tens column there. Okay. And one more, rounding to the nearest 10. Highlight the tens column again. Write down all the numbers that appear before, so a 3. Look at the number afterwards, a 7. 7 is more than 5, so it should round up. So our value now goes to 400. We've rounded to the nearest 10, but in this case the nearest 10 takes us up above the 100, so it goes to 400. Okay. Now we'll look at rounding to the nearest 100. So 2,786. Look at the hundreds column. Write down the numbers before the arrow, so that's 2 because that 1,000 is not going to change. Look at the number after the arrow to decide whether we round up or down. In this case we have an 8. So the 8 would round up, giving us 2,800. One decimal place. So highlight the 1 number after the decimal place, immediately next to it. Here we have a 7. After this, write down your 2. It's 2 point something here. After the 7 is an 8. 8 being greater than 5 will round up. So that takes us to 2.8. Notice now that we have no numbers after the first decimal place because we have rounded up to 1 decimal place. So there should be 1 decimal place in your answer. Okay, try this one. So 64.56 to the nearest 1 decimal place. Again, find your first decimal place. So we're going to have 64 point something here. After the decimal point, we have a 6. Okay, so we've looked at rounding to the nearest 10, 100 and 1000. Now we're going to look at rounding to decimal places. Always seems to confuse people. The rules are the same, we just have to locate which decimal place we're rounding to. So in this case, 1 decimal place. So highlight the 1 number after the decimal place, immediately next to it. Here we have a 7. After this, write down your 2. It's 2 point something here. After the 7 is an 8. 8 being greater than 5 will round up. So that takes us to 2.8. Notice now that we have no numbers after the first decimal place because we have rounded up to 1 decimal place. So there should be 1 decimal place in your answer. Okay, try this one. So 64.56 to the nearest 1 decimal place. Again, find your first decimal place. So we're going to have 64 point something here. After the decimal point, we have a 6. Right, so we've looked at rounding to the nearest 10, 100 and 1000. Now we're going to look at rounding to decimal places. Quite often this is the one that confuses people. The rules are the same. We just have to locate which number we are rounding to, in which case this is the first decimal place. So it's the first number after the decimal point. So here we have a 5. After the 5 here is a 6. So we're going to write down, remember, the first numbers, 64, because that isn't going to change in this case. After the 5, we have a 6. 6 is greater than 5, so the number will round up, so that will give us 64.6. If your number rounds down, it doesn't take the whole number down by a step, it will just round down to 0. So here, if we had 64.53 and rounded that, the 3 is less than 5, so we would have 64.50 or 64.5 to 1 decimal place. Here's some more questions for you to try. Remember, 1 decimal place, locate your first decimal place, the number after the decimal place. If it's more than 5, will round up. If it's less than 5, it will round down to 0. Okay, sometimes we are required not to round to a certain place, but we just want the important numbers in whatever we're analysing here. So we call these significant figures, or sig figs for short, and you'll use this for estimating, which is always a valuable skill when you're looking to check your answers. Have you got it too big or too small? Am I in the right ballpark, as it were? So, round 243 to 1 significant figure. In this case, the 2 is 200. That is the most significant figure. So there is our 2. Same rule now. After the 2 is a 4. If it's 5 or more, we go up. Less than 5 goes down. So in this case, the 4 will round down to 0. And put your 0 back in at the end to preserve your place value, so that you have the same number of columns. And our answer here is 200. So now we're looking at a bigger number, 5,893, to the nearest 2 significant figures. So this time we need to count in 2 numbers from the front. So we have 5 and 9 are our first 2 significant figures. Same procedure, after the 9 is an 8. 8 is more than 5, 5 or more rounds up. So our 5,983 will round up. Put your zeros back in to conserve your place value again. Make sure you've still got 4 columns in your answer. The 8 will go up. So this gives us 6,000, because the 9 rounds up there to take us up to the 6,000. And again, with some decimals here, but 1 significant figure, so we're still just looking at that first number 2. The significant figure at the front. Look at the number afterwards, as per usual. 4 is less than 5, so the 4 would round down. Put your zeros back in to preserve your place value, giving us an answer of 20. So we've rounded to 1 significant figure, so we have 1 non-zero number at the front of our answer. And some decimals here again. They're irrelevant as far as we're concerned, because we're looking at the significant figures. In this case, we're looking at this 9 here, the first non-zero number. So 2 significant figures, 9 and 3. After the 3 is a 7, 7 being 5 or more, rounds up. Put your 0 back into your place value, not particularly necessary when dealing with these decimals. So we have 0.094. 2 significant figures is the question, and there are 2 numbers, 2 non-zero numbers in our answer. We use these when we're trying to find some estimations. We want to round our numbers off and make our calculation as easy as possible. So we round it to 1 significant figure. So have a little go at this one. Pause the video, see if you can work it out, and then we'll check the answer. So 5.1 to 1 significant figure. We look at the 5, after it's the 1 rounds down, giving us 5. 57.2 would round to 60. We look at the 5, after the 5 is a 7, so that rounds us up to 60. And then 9.8 at the bottom rounds up to 10. Notice again, 1 significant figure, so all of our numbers have 1 non-zero number in. Make it as easy as possible. 5 times 60 is 300, divided by 10 gives you an answer of 30. As an approximate answer. If you try to work this out and got an answer of 300 or 3 or 50 or 70, you know you're in the wrong ballpark, so you need to change your questions and review what you've done. So, here's one for you to have a go at. Garth calculates this. He's actually done the sum on his calculator. He hasn't estimated, he's calculated, and he gets 1,097,000. Use approximations to check if his answer has the right magnitude. So you need to estimate his answer and see if he's got 1 million, 10 million, 1,000, 10, etc. So we'll see if Garth has got the right answer, and that will be the final part of your homework for this week. Enjoy.